Jesus Ochoa and Raimundo Gutierrez were discovered by ProPublica, have been identified by ProPublica to be the two Border Patrol agents that shot and killed Alex Pretti just a little bit over a week ago in Minneapolis, Minnesota, during the protests that were happening there in support of immigrant brothers and sisters as they were being harassed by Border Patrol agents. Let's talk about this. So ProPublica did identify these two Border Patrol agents, Jesus Ochoa and Raimundo Gutierrez, to be originally from South Texas, from the Rio Grande Valley, which is where I'm from, which is why I have a particular interest to talk about this with you all today. And this may be a shock to so many people to know that these two individuals that are probably first generation Mexican Americans from South Texas, or who have grandparents that were immigrants, how did this country get so rotten where we have people that probably have immigrant backgrounds in this rogue agency attacking people that look like themselves, harassing people that look like themselves with similar surnames, with similar backgrounds and stories, and to kill a white individual that was there fighting in protection of immigrant brothers and sisters, of brown immigrants, and to be killed by brown people that were part of Border Patrol. Just how twisted and rotten is this world right now? And like I said, this may come as a shock to a lot of people, but it's not a shock to me, and I don't think it's particularly a shock to a lot of people in my community in South Texas. We know that a little bit over 50% of Border Patrol agents identify themselves as Hispanic or Latino. The same with ICE. About 30% of ICE agents identify themselves as Hispanic or Latino. And you may ask yourselves, like, how did this happen? How is it that so many Latinos and Hispanics are part of this rogue agency? Now, there's been talk about like this being an economic decision for a lot of them because it provides some pathway to the middle class. A lot of first generation Latinos or first generation Mexican Americans come from lower income households. And if they forego college or don't have access to other opportunities in their corporate world or other industries, perhaps they see this as a pathway towards becoming or having access to more wealth and providing for their families. But at this point, at what cost, guys? For any agents out there listening to this, or people that I grew up with that are part of this rogue agency, at the cost of what? At the cost of attacking our own people? At the cost of destroying our democracy? At the cost of doing the dirty work for a rogue and fascist administration like the Trump administration is? Now, I think it's important for us to consider the historical political context here. After 9/11, Department of Homeland Security got founded under the Bush administration. After the Patriot Act, and ICE also got founded in 2003. It's relatively very new historically. And a lot of their base of operations were obviously on the border. If you all remember correctly, they were trying to justify in putting the border wall during the fence during the Bush administration because, they thought that a lot of these quote unquote terrorists were going to come from the southern border, when in reality it was quite the opposite. They came from Canada, but that's a whole other story. But there was a lot of money and enforcement and investment from the federal government into South Texas border communities and throughout the Southwest, frankly, all across the Southwest, for the Department of Homeland Security. So what happens 2 decades later is that it becomes one of the largest and most powerful employers in the region. And so it's common to see Border Patrol or ICE to host like career days at the school districts, have really strong relationships with school boards, with the local universities, with local elected officials, with the local chamber of commerce, you name it. They form part of these like very tight-knit like local communities and have built a lot of trust and have given careers to a lot of young people, especially young men that didn't go to college, right, and wanted to provide. And so what happens is that when these individuals join Border Patrol, join ICE, they quickly become heavily politicized. Take, for example, the Border Patrol Union. It's a propaganda machine for MAGA, for Trump, for right-wing agenda. And that is the voice for Border Patrol agents in many instances. We've heard ICE is even, I think, more rogue and more aggressive in the way that they go about things. And so when we saw this shift towards Trump from Latinos in South Texas, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that for the last 20 years, the Department of Homeland Security has become one of the top employers and political influencers in shifting the minds of young Latino men towards Trump. And so it's no surprise that these are the very same Latino men that are in Minneapolis killing US citizens, because they come from this mentality. They've been brainwashed, they've been politicized this way, and it fits this administration and its fascist ideals very well. Like, the agents from South Texas have been primed for this and to act as tools for a fascist administration like the Trump administration. And now, this is very sad for me, and because I know that we're so much better than this. We need to create other pathways for our people besides just joining Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security if they forego college. It's very sad and heartbreaking for me to see that our young people and young men especially are being used as tools to attack and harass other people of color, other immigrant families in this time. And if anybody's ever read into the philosophy of divide and conquer, this is a clear example. How do you conquer a people? It's that you divide them. And they've divided us. And I've seen these divisions. I've seen these fights. If you go to the Rio Grande Valley, you know people that are Border Patrol agents or families that depend on the income of a Border Patrol agent and their family. And then you also have immigrant families that absolutely fear or hate ICE and Border Patrol with good reason. And these are people living in the same neighborhoods, going to the same schools, whose children go to schools together, and it's created a lot of division within our community. So that's been the sad part. But I think it's time for Congress to step in and to finally acknowledge that this ICE agency is rogue and should not exist. It should be abolished. Should be heavy oversight over Border Patrol. This Trump administration, and also Obama and also Biden, I'm not clearing them from this either. They sort of set it up for where the Trump administration could do this so easily. But the Border Patrol agency needs heavy oversight and needs major cultural change in there. And, you know, Congress needs to step up. Democrats needs to step up. Democrats are predicted to take Congress this November. They need to go in there and they need to be matching the energy in the streets, the protests in the streets, the abolish ICE energy, the going after the fascists, accountability of these fascists. That needs to be front and center for Democrats who are going to be courageous in taking that stance, because that's what we're going to need to make a dent into these rogue organizations. And then, of course, we need to do a much better job in telling the story to our own young people about the struggle of Latino civil rights in this country, of civics, of empathy, of democracy. If these values were really taught in a public education system, more young people would question working for these rogue, anti-democracy, fascist-minded organizations, especially under the Trump administration. So a lot of work to do there. We can't count on the public education system in Texas, but we can do it ourselves, individually, in our families, in our communities, en comunidad. Sí se puede.